and I was speaking to Johnny, and I was like, fuck, I think I'm ready to take this pub. And in the week of my Antics in Ecuador, it went from 200 people to 250,000 people watching my Snapchat. In Greece, I got chased out by the mafia, and there was a hit out on me. When it was the biggest, I was getting hate mail every day. My mum's calling me, who's straight as an arrow, a legend of a lady, asking me where my strippers were. Yeah, so I grew up on the north shore of Auckland in New Zealand. I went to Rosmini College in Takapuna, Catholic boys' school. So yeah, just a boys' school. It was a big rugby school. I never actually cracked the first 15 properly. I was the second 15 player, bench for the first 15. I actually captained the second 15, and we won the championship. But yeah, never really cracked the first 15. Probably the best I did was the ball boy when I was Form 1, which a few of the older boys, Anthony Borrick and a few of the All Blacks, Rudy Wolf and whatnot. That was probably my claim to fame. I was pretty short at school. I had my sort of growth spurt later on in life, but it was just the cheeky little halfback in school and on the rugby field. I tried to leave school at 15 to do a building apprenticeship because all my mates were going into trades, which now they've got successful companies and making a fuck ton of money. That could have been me, but I did the summer working as a builder, just a little 15-year-old, and end of the summer, the builder that was giving me a trial was just like, nah, you're not up for it. You should head back to school. So I went back to school and kicked back on to the sixth form. After school, I chose to go down to Dunedin, to University of Otago, to be a scarfie. I was more just going down because it was the party university of New Zealand, and I had to pick what degree I was. So I chose, everyone was doing like BComs and BAs and like accounting, business majors. I wanted to be a bit different, so I chose teaching, which no one really would expect. I had a lot of cousins and was good with kids, so I went into primary school teaching. And you make so many friends down there. There ends up being so many birthdays. The first semester I was pretty committed. I was out on postings, partying as a scarfie, and then the next morning out teaching a room full of kids, which is probably a bit of a worry. And that was my first year, and I only did the 1 year down there. Went over to Aussie with a group of scarfies for the summer after my first year there, and we had that, and then everyone else went back to university in Otago, and I called it quits. Teaching wasn't for me, university wasn't for me, and I ended up back at home, which in Auckland, our family company is Civil Drain Lane in Auckland, if you need to find them, Mullins Contractors. And this was I was grateful for my family. Whenever I went away on my exploits around the world, I always had a job back for the family. A bit more depth into my rugby was, so I was like a second 15 player at school, bench for the first 15. After school, I was a Marist North Harbour boy. I was the first lad to kick a rugby ball on the North Harbour Stadium rugby fields, the Marist ones, before it was blessed. I was 2 years old. I was the first kid to kick a ball on the field. My mum and dad helped start that club. As we were a Catholic family, we were always Marist in our blood. Mum and dad were president of the club for 5 to 10 years each. I think dad's still involved a bit. I obviously rated myself as a pretty good rugby player. I think I played Walter Dixon and not Roland Malls, Walter Dixon when I was younger for Harbour, and then I never really. You got to get it in it's quite political, I'd say, no excuse, but in Auckland and Harbour, you got to get in early and go through the grades, and if you're not in there, you're sort of an outsider. In Marist Rugby, I was a reserve player and benching for the Prems, still at 20, 21. And I never was really getting a good chance, a good shot. So I thought, I think a couple of years in, I was playing reserves and Prems. I had an opportunity to go over to Perth. There was a little rugby contract, I think, on Inside Rugby. I think was the agent that found me my contract. There was the Western Force halfback that injured his knee playing club footy, and the club needed a halfback to fill in while he was injured. So I went over there and I just played probably my best rugby in my career. We won the first 3 games. This is top footy in Perth, and there's no middle line. There's no NPC in Australian rugby over in Western Australia. It just goes club footy, then Western Force. So I had half the Western Force team playing with me if they weren't playing in the Western Force that weekend, which was pretty cool. But 4 games into that season, I got called into the Western Force office, and they were like, "Who the fuck are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm Timmy Mullins, just come over from New Zealand. I had a little contract with the club, and it was just like they give you a house, give you a job, and you play club footy." And they were like, "Oh, you're playing amazing footy." The Western Force halfback started to come back to club, and I was playing too good, so he was left on the bench. So they were asking questions like who I was. Got to the end of the season. At this time, you could only have 2 international players playing in the Western Force. So I was just a fringe player. I didn't really. There was no chance. They said we were going to take the halfbacks that were coming through the academy. So this was a funny story. My first ever girlfriend had actually come over from New Zealand to live with me in Perth while I did this club footy contract. It got to the end of the season, and I didn't want to do a normal job, so I looked for another contract. I got one in Chicago, the Chicago Bears. I sent my missus home of the time and went over to Chicago. And this is before there's a Super League in America. We were still building the posts at primary schools playing, or college, on college fields where it used to be, they played American football. We'd build the post before the game, and I was playing for the Chicago Bears. Now fast forward time, Ma'anonu and playing for San Diego and the boys, Jamie McIntosh playing for fucking Austin and whatnot. I was playing it before the Super League had gained momentum. So that was pretty cool. And then I sprained my ankle maybe 4 games in. You can maybe see the scar on the camera. They just said it was a big sprain, but it was only a 3-month contract, so they sent me home. When I got back to Auckland, my mum and sister are physios, but my mum sent me in to get an x-ray, and they found a tumour. So imagine just going into a physio clinic and, an x-ray, and just thinking, just kosher, it was just normal, and then telling me straight away, "Oh, you've got a tumour. We don't know if it's cancerous or not, but you're going to have an operation as soon as possible." So that was pretty full-on news. I ended up having a surgery where they drill in there to see if it was cancerous or benign. It was benign, thank God, but they needed to take the tumour out. So the next surgery was maybe a few months later, and they took the tumour out and did bone marrow transplant, and I was in hospital for 2 weeks, and then bedridden for maybe a month and a half. It took about 12 weeks on crutches, and then I had to learn to walk again. So about 18 months out of footy. You sort of, all your mates, so the All Blacks, Super Rugby, NPC players, and I never really had cracked it properly. I had just been using it as a travel ticket so far, so my ambition for rugby sort of took a turn, and a few years later I was like, I'm going to use it again as a travel tool. If I can give any advice and you're a half good footy player, go over and travel the world, because I've had friends that have just played the NPC rugby in New Zealand, and they've maybe played for Harbour or Auckland for 8 years, and they haven't gone anywhere. They've just stayed there and done that, where I've played even less than semi-pro and got to travel the world. Perth, Chicago. My next one was where I was telling you I moved over to Wales, did a season in Cardiff. The rugby quality was probably like, I was happy my dad wasn't coming to watch. It was pretty embarrassing, the quality of footy, but the quality of life and the experience. I was living 5 minutes from Millennium Stadium, staying in a place called Splot, which all people from Wales would laugh at me if I told them I was staying at Splot. It was like the hood of Cardiff, but it was a 5-minute walk to Millennium Stadium, 5-minute walk to town, and that gave me a 4-bedroom house. I was very grateful. I called the boys who were up in London, come down and fill the house. They came down and lived with me, and we just had this dream year living in Cardiff. So that was sort of my rugby story, and I travelled the world doing that. I think my last contract I did was I went from the Cardiff. Again, I wasn't wanting any normal life or normal job, so I went over to Cardiff, and went over to Canada, played in a place called London, Ontario, which was 2 hours south of London. And yeah, that again, there's 2 different types of Canada. You could go over to Vancouver and Whistler, and you'd be surrounded by Kiwis and Aussies, so the accent doesn't really work as well as a place like London, Ontario. I played there, and I was the only foreigner in the bars. I was cleaning up because you speak, and everyone hasn't heard a Kiwi before, so I enjoyed that. But it was when, I think it was my last major concussion. I got knocked the fuck out, and man, for like maybe a month, 3 to 4 weeks, I was stuck inside. I was slurring my words, lights were fucking with my head. Then after a month inside, it was like crowd anxiety, didn't want to be outside. I called rugby quits there, and I suffered from concussion, and I still have concussion woes this many years on. Some mornings I'm quite foggy, quite slow. Sort of you learn to adapt with that in your life. So like, I'm used to my headaches. I'm used to being a bit foggy some days, but that's just the cards I was dealt after these concussions, and I've just got on with life. But yeah, that was basically the end of my rugby. Yeah. So my solo travels kicked in basically after I finished up my rugby, the concussion in Canada, and I was like, what's next? The boys had actually just found a way to, like the Kiwi Saver in New Zealand, that you used to buy a house later. Us travellers, if you'd actually lived away from New Zealand for more than a year, you can claim that you've immigrated overseas, and you can get your whole Kiwi Saver out of your bank account, which is a life hack. I don't know if it's still possible, but so a couple of my boys in the UK and Europe did theirs, I did mine, and then that gave me a bit of wedge. Mine wasn't as big as the other boys because I had worked fuck all in my life so far. But it gave me a bit of wedge, and I went to Central America, and then that gave me, this was my kicked off my solo travels: Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and then after Nicaragua, down to Panama, and I sailed from Panama to Colombia, and I had, which is a dream trip, one of the Puk Tours that we do. And a Kiwi girl met me over in Colombia. We did a month around there together after I'd just done Central America for about 3 months. And then after me and her finished up, some of the famous ever Puk Life Antics was that trip with her. And then after that, I sent her home, and I went over to Whistler, and I did my ski season in Canada there, which if you ever want to tick off some boxes in life, go to a ski season in Canada, and it's fucking unreal. Yeah, did a season there, and I got there quite late apparently, and usually it's quite hard to find people like where to stay. Everyone's sharing rooms, and I was like, I'm just going to be me and go out, and I actually had my mate Borry was there with me. Him and his partner were there just finishing a season, so I got to stay with them for 2 weeks as I was getting settled. They were getting ready to leave, so he sort of passed me on to his friends, so I had friends to start with, and then it was getting to crunch time where I needed to lock in a place, and I think I just went out and was my usual self, bumped into 2 girls. One was a Kiwi, Lucy, who I'm good friends with now, and they had this big mansion on Eagle Drive, and it's called sort of like uni. It was the third year people that have been there for like their 3rd season. They had all the party street, and I moved in there with the girls, lived in the attic. It's about 4 of us in the attic, and I did 4 months there in Whistler. I was working for the snowboard rental company there, and I had a little shoebox on the bottom of the mountain in Whistler. Longhorn was there, and I had this where people would ski in and leave their snowboard and ski rentals while they went for lunch, and I just sit there cold as fuck watching Netflix. And it was like Australia Day, which is a big day there because it's all Aussies. Peking Duck was playing. I ended up hosting this big party in there, and we're playing backyard cricket out in the snow, and a security guard walks across and catches the ball, and I was like, don't be a cunt. And then he followed me back to work. Turns out he was the 2IC of the mountain. The next day I went into work, and there was a list. I got fired, and I was banned from the mountain, and the list was pretty funny. It was told me why I was fired, and it was like playing backyard cricket while I meant to be working on Australia Day, hosting 30 people on the premises, drinking on Australia Day, being drunk while working on Australia Day, calling the 2IC of the mountain a cunt on Australia Day. So I was banned from the mountain, and that was like early Jan, so it was like 3 more months of the season. So I had to find someone that was similar to me and use his ticket and have anxiety every day to try go for the scanner and not get caught. And then after 4 months, it got quite repetitive for me, and I set off sail to start where I left off, as I'd already done Colombia. So this was sort of my main solo adventures. I'd just done Colombia before the ski season, and then I went and went to Ecuador to kick off the rest of South America. And my plan was to go from Ecuador all the way down to Brazil. It took me 6 months, and at the end of that 6 months was the Olympic Games, and I was going to live in Rio. So I went Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Argentina. Then I traveled Brazil for about 3 months, building up to the Olympics, and then I was set up living in in Rio for the Olympics, which was 2016, and I had an apartment for the games. And again, if you know me, you know all the stories that went on there. But it was pretty exciting times, yeah. Rewinding the clock back, when I was 19, I flew over to the UK to do a summer rugby camp. And I didn't, my words and my chat hadn't come across in my life yet. I hadn't learned how to play the game. And I was fresh off a flight from Auckland over to London, and I had rugby boots and all these personal training or rugby coach cards in my bag. And I was there I can't remember where I was doing that, somewhere in London. It was a 3-month camp. I was coaching kids, and it was my first big trip away. And the customs opened my bag, found rugby boots, found all these cards, and they're like, "You're here to work." And I'm like, and they're like, "How much money do you have in the account?" And I'm like, "On you." And I'm like, "Oh, no money on me." I just wasn't really thinking. I was pretty jet lagged, and I was like, "Oh, my money's in New Zealand. I'm waiting to transfer that over." And they were like, "You got rugby boots here. You're here to work, and you need a work visa." And this is just when the work visa things had changed, the laws had changed. And I'm sitting there stumped. They throw me into detention camp for the day. I was locked around all these other people because I was there without a work visa, and I'd got caught, and I just didn't have the chat to get me out of it. They end up, no word of a lie, putting me back on a plane from Auckland back home. So I just flown half the world to get to London. Detention camp was for a day. I was calling mum from a payphone in the detention camp going, "What the fuck's going on? I don't know what I'm doing." And they put me on a flight back. So I flew from Monday, and I left my house Monday, and I was back in New Zealand Friday. I flew that whole week with a detention camp in the middle. And I got back, I'm lying in my bed, and one of my best mate, Ben Boddicker, was in my room taking some clothes, and I was like, "What are you doing, mate?" And he was like, "Holy fuck, what are you doing here?" Like, he just was coming thinking I was away, so he came and raided some of my clothes, and I was there. But going forward from that, I next went over and was living in Europe in a place called Palma in Spain, and I was going to work on the super yachts. I'd just done my tickets back home, I can't remember what they're called now, but the health ticket and the speedboat ticket to go work as a deckhand on the yachts. And I made my way over to Palma, de Mallorca, I can never really pronounce that, and where all the yachties were, and there was about 1,000 first years looking for a job, and then all the boats were only looking for second years or third years. And I'm sitting there with my mate Matt Cowie at the time, and I'm like, "Fuck, man, I'm just gonna have to fake this." So I end up faking the CV, and I fake this CV. I write a whole fake one, and I have my mate back home, Lloyd Andrews, one of my best mates. He's a yachty. He grew up on the boats and whatnot. So I had him down as my captain. I said I worked on his boat for 3 years. He was all my credentials. So I put that out online in this island of another 1,000 first years, and I got a call an hour later. They called Lloyd back home. Lloyd played the game, said, "Yeah, he's worked for me on my boat for about 3 years." I got the job, and my flight was that night, 6 hours later to Barcelona. And and me putting this fake CV online, I had this job, I had my flight booked, and I was going over to Barcelona from Palma. But here's the thing, man, I was horrible at tying knots. I could fucking not tie a reef knot, and I was going to be a deckhand. So I was starting before my flight trying to learn how to fucking tie a knot and whatnot. And I get over to Barcelona, the captain picks me up, And I was my plan was to learn off the other deckhands. Like there was going to be about 2 or 3 deckhands in my head. I was going to just learn off them and pick up the game quickly. I got there, the captain goes, "Hey, you're the sole deckhand, you're in charge of everything outside. I'm the captain, there's a stewardess inside." And I was like, holy fuck, I'm in the deep end here. And no word of a lie, 3 days later I was driving this multi-million-dollar yacht from Barcelona to Montenegro, all the staff asleep, and I'm driving this fucking boat. And the captain caught on maybe like a week or 2 into it that I wasn't probably what I said I was, but I was already there, so he was just trying to teach me along the way. After I did the month, they told me I was paid, and I was in Dubrovnik, Croatia, my boat, and it was all the sail Croatia party boats around me, and I'm scrubbing with a toothbrush. You're basically a bitch to the rich, cleaning a boat that's already clean. And all these guys like myself usually were just rinsing me. "Hey, come party with us, come party with us." And I'm just scrubbing, saying it's already clean. And it got to like the catwalk of the boat. I'm cleaning that. Girls are walking past all day. And I know I just got paid the night before. And I clean it, and the captain comes back and goes, "Clean it again." And I'm like, "Mate, what? Like, it's clean." He goes, "Do it again." And I'm like, "Nah." And he was like, "What'd you say to me?" I was like, "Nah." And he goes, "Pack your bags." So I put my bags on my back, and put my bags on my back, and I was on the party sail Croatia boat next to me within 5 minutes. And that was that of my yachting career. And that was my first basically Europe experience. And from there I did the 1 week in this Dubrovnik, partying around for Croatia, and then what you were talking about, Asia, my mate Joel Hewitt, another one of my best buds, he was living in Bangkok, being a tour guide at the time. And a week into Dubrovnik, I booked a joint flight, and I was on a flight to Bangkok to meet Joel, who was living as a tour guide of fucking Asia, and went and linked up with him. And this was so many years ago now. And I stayed with him for a bit, ended up getting this sleeve there, and then lasted probably 2 weeks in Asia, and then I was back home. And that was my first Asia experience. Which country is my favorite? Amsterdam was always one of my favorite places. I love people watching, sitting there at a bar and just like, analyzing what's going on out there. People were sitting there in beers, and there was a sports bar in Amsterdam that did these all-you-can-eat ribs, and I think $10 for 10 test tube shots. That's always stuck to me. I've sent people there many a times. Amsterdam's fucking, and for the rest of Amsterdam was up there. Colombia is beautiful for all reasons, not what you think that I'm saying it's beautiful for, but Colombia, the Colombian woman, the sights, and everything in between is probably up there with my favorite. They're definitely my favorite women in the world. Them, and then French Canadians, my two favorite nationalities. But it's so hard. I mean, Bay of Islands in New Zealand is probably one of my favorite places in the world. Soon to be Puk's Palace here in Copenhagen will be my favorite place in the world. I did one of my Europe summers which was my favorite. We did Tomorrowland in Belgium, me and Johnny Danger. He hadn't traveled yet, and I'd already done Europe, so I go, let's go. Me and him went over and had a summer of the ages over there. It's sort of what made mine and his name, like my name, and what made his name. We just ran wild around Europe together. But Tomorrowland in Belgium is definitely something to tick off. We went to there, we did the Running with the Bulls in Spain, Pamplona. That's another thing, if you want to tick that off, that's a life quest ticked by me. That's one of my scariest adrenaline moments in my life, sitting there running with the bulls. I'm standing there, me and Johnny actually was spewing. The one night, he'd fucking partied all night. I think I had a little bit of sleep. He's spewing all morning, but this was the one time we chose to do it, and we went into the town to do it. We were in there, we'd been selected. The bell rings, 6 bulls are gone, and then you just sort of have to pick a spot on one of the shop windows so you can let a bull go past you, so you can get into the arena. And I'm lit like this, but everyone else is like this. So you're actually like this on a crowd of 3 other people doing that, and you look, and they say 1 bell goes, 6 bulls go, and then another bell goes a minute later, but you just hear ring, ring. And I'm looking down there. I think Johnny's on the other side. I think Theo's on the other side. And these bulls, you just see people flying, flicking up. And you're just like, holy shit. I think me and Johnny looked each other in the eyes and we're like, this is it. We're ready. And they come to you. I think 2 went past and we dodged them. And then I just tuck in behind the bull. And you're just behind the bull like this, like pretty close to it, just watching it flick people and run over people. And you're just using it as your protection. The other bulls are maybe a few meters behind, but you've found your little hole. And then I managed to get into the arena. Johnny got in, and then we'd ticked off the bucket list, and that was a fucking crazy experience. So yeah, Pamplona I'd say was up there with one of my favorite things or places to go. I was always like this. It was always South America, Central America, Asia. And now I'm living in Asia. All my Asia memories have been pretty blue. Now I'm living and setting up my next palace, a dream palace. Asia's coming back up. Any countries that I've been to that I wouldn't go back to, or I can't? Well, it used to be Greece. I couldn't really go back to Greece, but that time's gone on. I look a bit different. But yeah, Greece, I got chased out by the mafia, and there was a hit out on me. And this was on a Europe summer with another one of my best buds where I met Spain Dog 89, which you'd all know. We had a summer there, and we had an apartment there. This is where I met him, actually. This is when my Snapchat was pumping, probably the biggest, maybe like 250,000 people watching. And there was one of our girl mates worked at this bar, and I was banned from the bar. Spain Dog worked for the bar, and I was banned, so I couldn't really see them, but see them during the day. So Spain Dog was ready to quit, and we saw our friend in the supermarket, who was a gorgeous, like 22-year-old Aussie girl from Sydney, just gorgeous body, gorgeous face, real good chick. She was a good friend of ours. She came back to ours at lunchtime, and I just thought it would be funny that if she would tug us off and us would finish on the work singlet of the place where I was barred from. And we did that, had this gorgeous Aussie girl tugging us off, and we both finished. Actually, Spain Dog came on my leg, the bastard, and I came on the singlet of this bar. And long story short, that went on my Snapchat, and it got about 250,000 views. And the next day I'm sitting there down at Far Out Beach, I think it is, in Eos, and I'm looking, and the cops raid it, like the SWAT sort of, maybe 5 cops raid this bar, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? And then they come at me, tackle me, pull me out on my ankle, start beating me in the cop car. And they're like, where's your friend, Spain Dog? And they just start whacking me, and they're driving me up. And as they're driving me up and I'm getting hit, Spain Dog's in the corner of my eye walking down to the bar to meet me. And I'm like, I don't know where he is. Anyway, I get to the cop station. They have a baseball bat to my knee. And they're like, where's your friend? I'm like, I don't know. And they're showing me my Snap story, and they're like, look at this. And I'm like, yeah, it's my friend. This is, 3 consenting adults. And the guy, the owner of the bar, he was the mafia, and he owned the police, and he was, disrespected or whatnot, probably as you would be, but the guy was a cunt. And anyway, so the cops were had the baseball bat to my knee and telling me about that. And asking me where my friend was, and I wasn't giving up Spain Dog, but they were like, you've got 8 hours to leave the island, or else I was going to go missing. So I ended up having to get Spain Dog. We left the island, and that was my time in Eos. And we went over to another island instead of leaving Greece like people would, and we got given this 2 jobs there on this island, and we were like the face of this new boat company. And I just put up a story on my Facebook telling the story of what I just told you, and it went viral, and it's had 80,000 views on Facebook. And then I obviously just put the bad light on the island, and I got an inside word bro, you better get out, they're coming for you. So me and Spain Dog had to gap in the middle of the night and get out of Greece. But that's water under the bridge. I have good friends on that island, some close friends of mine. I was actually, before Puk's Palace, Thailand. If that didn't go ahead, I was looking to go halves in a bar over in Greece with some friends of mine, and I have some close friends there. So I would have gone back with my head on my shoulders and just put bit the bullet if there was still some repercussions there. Where did the word Puk come from? Well, once upon a time, it was the acronym. It was the acronym Playing Up Crew, Playing Up King. Me and my mate came up with it once upon a time. I've made up so many different meanings over the years from the Puk itself, and it's just grown and ended up being its own foundation more than anything. But yeah, it was playing up, being free, just living life to the fullest, and yeah, but it was playing up crew or playing up king. When did Puk become a household name or known? Well, I guess all my close friends and everyone knew me as Puk a while ago, and then Snapchat was a thing, and I think through my antics, just for close friends, Snapchat was a thing, and I used to do the naughty on Snapchat and just have this private group, and it was called Puk Global, and I was doing the wildest things from party to sex to everything in between on my Snapchat, and it was just shared between close friends around the world. It was a solid group, and then it didn't really kick off or become a household name until me and Johnny Danger went to Europe. And we didn't want girlfriends to see what we were up to, or our mates' girlfriends, so we just had my private Snapchat group, which was Puk Global, and we posted all our antics around that Europe summer, and we let more people into the group. People were getting banned if they showed their girlfriend, and that sort of kicked off the proper Puk Global Snapchat, the first ever one. It had some popularity on All Blacks, Wallabies, England, and all the Super Rugby teams and all the teams in France and whatnot. I had this private group, and then I did that for years, and it didn't really, this was sort of just loyal chat between the boys, and it didn't really kick off to a household name until I got to Ecuador. I was about to kick off the next part of my South America experience, and I was speaking to Johnny, and I was like, fuck, I think I'm ready to take this public. And in the week of my antics in Ecuador, it went from 200 people to 250,000 people watching my Snapchat. And it was crazy because I was just living the travel life, which every traveller does. I was rooting 2 girls a day and snorting an 8-ball of coke. But to someone living at a desk and living a normality life at a 9 to 5 back home, everyone was ready to watch someone living it up overseas. So it went from 200 people on a private thing to publicly 250,000 people watching my Snapchat and watching my travels, and it just blew up. I was doing radio interviews to Van Kirby and George FM from Peru. Reporters were knocking on mum's door. You know what your sons are up to overseas? And it was all just fucking skyrocketing. My sister was first year in Dunedin, and it was the Hyde Street keg party at the time, and that's where they dress up the houses and everyone has a theme. My sister calls and goes, "What have you been doing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" There's 200 people painted as you, and there's 6 houses as a theme of Puk Life on Hyde Street keg party. And I was like, fuck me, dude, I definitely knew I was doing something. And that's basically when it just, became a household name, Puk did. And from then and through the South America exploits, it just got bigger and bigger. I kept losing account after account, but each account, the title was Puk Life. So then Puk Life was known around the world. But it was just a painful thing. Everyone knew it once upon a time, but everyone would lose me. So the majority asked people, "Oh yeah, I was watching Puk Life 2 years ago, but I couldn't find his next account." And that was the story of my life, really. It went nuts, but I was just having to fight the system, and now sitting on 37 Snapchat accounts later, and now Snapchat have blocked the IP address on my phone, so I can't even log into Snapchat or start a new one. But yeah, that was answering your question in long sense. That was sort of when it became a household name. Along the way, this was all just leisure. I was just doing it. I was loving doing my normal, this was just my normal exploits, but I was loving that everyone was watching it. But it was never really a business. I think maybe a year into just me being a menace on the Snapchat, maybe I started selling singlets, like Puk Life singlets, and once upon a time, but that was only giving me enough money for maybe a night out and fucking on my travels and whatnot. So it didn't really kick into a business till a bit later on in the game. I was actually with a girl, and I was sort of bouncing around on these less than semi-pro rugby contracts, using that as my travel ticket. Puk still, and I just finished a Europe summer, and I'd met this girl I was fucking in love with, and she was sort of like, what are your fucking future plans? And I was always sort of just aiming for 3 months to 6 months ahead. I was never looking further, and until I had met this chick, and I was like, man, I've been getting deleted off all these social medias. I've been plastered in the papers back home. I can't go back to normal life, and I don't want to. How can I turn my following into a business? So I was sitting there lying on the couch in Portugal at the time, a place called Lagos, with her in my arms, and I was like, I'm going to do a tour company. I'm going to set up a tour company. I've just done the world twice already. I'm going to take people to where I've been, my favorite places, and take them on a tour, maybe, and go from there. Like, how can I capitalize on my following the most and turn this into a business? So that led me into Puk Tours. So yeah, Puk Tours was the first step into the business life, trying to capitalize on my brand I've just created, which I realized there was a brand, Puk Life. And then from Puk Tours, I led these tours around Central America, and then I always had the dream to build a hostel once upon a time. And after my first year of tours, 11 months into that game, I had Puk's Palace, Nicaragua landed. So I swooped in and took an opportunity, and that was the next branch in the company. And it was just always trying to find what ways I could take, what branches that I could take from Puk Life being the whole. So I had the Puk Tours. I launched into Puk's Palace, Nicaragua, my first step into the hostel resort game. And then I was just trying to pump out new merch, different types of merch that people wanted to buy. They were mainstream sort of normal businesses, and then I realized as time went on a bit that I was getting deleted on these social medias. How can I capitalize on it? I started a paid Snapchat account where people would subscribe. They'd pay $10 to $20 for a lifetime membership. Pansy Bodger Baggins, if you're watching this and you're my loyal group, you've been loyal for about 5 years, and people would subscribe for a lifetime membership, and we knew that people that were paying that were about supported my antics and loved it. So I got to be myself on that platform, and that was a profitable business. I ended up making the most money of my life through just having this paid Snapchat account, and I wasn't getting shut down. So I was doing that before OnlyFans was a thing. Then when OnlyFans became a thing, I jumped on that platform. This is still when every girl and her dog was probably judging me for my antics around the world and having sex with girls on camera and partying and whatnot. And then when OnlyFans became a thing and the quarantine happened around the world, every girl and her dog was spreading her legs for a subscription price. So, and then I'm sitting there laughing, hey, like, you were the ones that were judging me. So that was another avenue in my business. There's probably a story for another time as well, and that was when the ball was rolling. Now we're just trying to find every angle I can take from the Puk Life. I was just wild in general, and I loved doing all this crazy shit. And then I just liked filming it. I think as I was sending it to my mates, they were enjoying it, so I knew what I was doing was pretty entertaining. And then that, as I was traveling, not everyone was seeing the life. Everyone's pretty closed-minded in other countries and don't know this life exists. And I wanted to show the world that this life exists, this traveling Central and South America and Europe and doing these antics. And I just had no shame, I guess, and I was not shy. When everyone would usually, everyone would do what I was doing, but do it behind closed doors, where I was open and an open book, and I was happy to, like for me, I wasn't even, maybe I was doing it on a crazier and weirder sense a bit, but I was still doing what every traveler does. I just chose to film it when everyone's lights went off, my lights stayed on, and I was just showing the world that this is what you can do. When it was the biggest, and I guess I was having 200,000 people watch my antics. I was receiving hate mail. I feel like there was a solid 10%, 90% were about it, probably would never do it, but were happy to watch it. And then there were 10% maybe that didn't want this guy living this life. Look at him running around the world. If I can't do it, he shouldn't. When it was the biggest, I was getting hate mail every day, 10 to 20 messages like just abuse. But then when you actually bite, like I never bite back, but I'll be like, hey, you're right. And then majority of the time they'll be like, oh bro, I was just trying to get your attention, bro, love your work, blah, blah, blah. People, if they knew me as Timmy, they knew how I brought up, and they knew I'm just maybe not a normal lad, but they knew me. But from the outside, no, yeah, definitely copped it. But that's what I was putting myself out there to open for the abuse and the antics I was doing, definitely. But it was just sort of the same as getting reported, and I was getting my account shut down. It was like, why pick up the TV remote and put it on a movie and then complain about the movie? Don't put it on that channel if you don't like the channel, and don't call Sky and complain about the movie that's on. Just, yeah, why does it bother you? Just move on. But fuck, it would bother people, and they'd just do their best to shut me down, and they'd usually win. Yeah, the media, I was doing my first ever interviews from Peru while I was running wild through South America, and they were all positive since it was just going crazy at the time. But the media, I think, I was plastered across the papers, but I mean, it shouldn't have ever happened. A lady, I was actually, my antics had simmered down. This is when I got attacked by the press. My antics had simmered down. I was actually in France, living with my best mate, Ben Bodica, up in a place called Oyonnax. It was in the, it was almost in the Swiss Alps, but it was France. And I was sitting there, I had done fuck all. And this is what I mean, I guess bad press is good press. Make me relevant again. This lady who was an anchor for One News had just married into the family, and I wake up and just out of nowhere she wrote this article about me, and it was like, his online life is like a drug lord's, but his mum will sort him out. And I'm like, fuck, what do you, like, why does the article need to be there? I ended up putting a screenshot on my Snapchat, go and look what the media is doing to me, and I never got that many messages. I got like 10,000 messages just, who is this? Fuck the media, fuck this person, blah, blah, blah. And I ended up getting calls from them, and they were like, take this down. And I'm like, what do you mean? You've got a story of me up. And the radios jumped on it, and it was going One News versus Puk Life, going live on air. And I ended up causing this big sort of bit of a family rift. One half of the family thought I was in the wrong, and then the other half was, on my side, and I ended up going online on the radio and just didn't even talk about the lady, just supported myself, supported my antics, and just told the world everything I do is consensual. And after that, I woke up, the media army came at me, I got all these questions, and I had someone at the Daily Mail that gave me some advice that she was like, don't answer the questions, just write a statement. And so I ended up writing the statement to one of the reporters, and it was just like, I'm Timmy Mullins, and blah, 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 and I made the statement. And then me and my mate had flown to the UK to party in Newcastle, and I wake up and it's like front page of the Herald, Timmy Mullins defends sex videos. But it was just a ludicrous story. Anyone that knew me as a person knew it was all just fucking bullshit. And it was, the media just had come at me from all sides, just because I had supported myself, I guess. To be fair, what is the meaning of controversial? Like, is it doing antics that aren't the normality? Is it doing shit against the grain? Is that controversial? Maybe I am controversial. I just, the whole way I've just lived me. I was never actually doing anything for the camera. I was just documenting what I'm up to at the time, and some of those antics were, I guess, questionable in some people's eyes, but it was just living my best life, and I haven't looked back. But if that made me controversial, yes, but someone would probably need to explain the proper meaning for controversial for me. I was plastered in the papers back home. I didn't want to go back to a normal life, and I probably couldn't go back to being a primary school teacher. Parents will walk into parent-teacher interviews and be like, I've seen you somewhere. So I was like, what am I going to do? I had this girl at the time, and she was motivating me to do something a bit more with life. So Puk Tours came to me because I wanted to keep this travel work, or just live this life that live my best life traveling the world. So Puk Tours came about, and it was about where can I take people where you could do 2 countries in a day, cheap, good drugs, good party, bend the rules a bit, and Central America was one of my big first trips. So I was like, I've already done this, I know the destination, I could do this pretty easy. So I kicked it off in Central America, and we did the famous tours. And the first year, I think we did 5 tours, and it was Belize, started in Cancun, everyone flies in there, then I tell everyone we're going down to Playa del Carmen. This is pretty Americanized Mexico, but the trip really starts when we get to Belize. We do Belize, go to the Cape Corca where my good friend Pops and Soph, Travelers Palm. We used to go on a cocaine shark tour through the Belize Islands, and then down to Guatemala, and then Guatemala to El Salvador. And then this is when Nicaragua was having its first, having its civil unrest about three and a half years ago. So it was going quite bad. I couldn't finish my tour there. So I had to finish my tour in El Salvador. This is before Puk's Palace in Nicaragua was a thing. I did my tours and everyone was flying out of El Salvador to finish. And so it was a 21-day tour. So 3 weeks, all inclusive, basically a dinner at each new spot, accommodation included, and I obviously look after you in all aspects. And it's 21 nights, and then that would finish in San Salvador, and then 2 weeks to the next tour. So a normal man would go on the beach, put his feet up, and rest till the next tour. This is the first year I did my 21-day tour. I went to Vegas for 2 weeks. I just had this new money hit my account that I hadn't seen before. Did Vegas, came back, did another tour. The next gap between my thing, I went and did the Europe festivals. The next gap, I did Burning Man. And now looking back, only a few years older, and I'm like, how the fuck could I do these tours again, in the sense of 21-day cocaine tour, basically back to back to back to back. And that was the first year of Puk Tours. Then they were successful. My parents actually met me in Brazil. We did a little golden oldie Puk tour, and then we flew home, and I'm like, man, this is when New Zealand's at its best. It's summer, the festival season, and I'm like, I'm gonna buy a bus. And originally I was gonna hire a shuttle, but I was like, ended up getting home and I was like, I'm gonna buy a bus and do a festival tour, do Hidden Valley, Rhythm and Vines and Bay Dreams, 7 nights on the Puk bus. So I started selling that tour before I'd even got home, before I'd bought the bus. But when I was in New Zealand, bought the green bus. Me and the boys, Ricky and Harry, Ricky painted it, brand new green, screen wrote it up the Puk on the front and Puk Tours on the side, and we did the first ever Puk tour, which did Hidden Valley, Rhythm and Vines and Bay Dreams with 21 people, I think it was. And that was that kicked off that. It was a crazy experience. And then after that New Year's, as Nicaragua had just been struggling, the opportunity presented itself for me to get Puk's Palace Nicaragua. And 2 weeks into January that year, I was on my bags on my back, and I was over in Nicaragua with my new resort. And the bus was sitting there in New Zealand. So I was like, how can I capitalize here? And I was like, I'll do stag do's and hen do's. So I started doing these stag do's and hen do's. They were booking bachelor parties out to like 2 nights every weekend. So we had to tint the bus, and then we got a stripper company on board, and we had strippers connected to my company. We had about 50 strippers on the books. Had my family friend who was the bus driver. I think my brother had to jump on and be security. And this was my life moment. Mum called me one night while I was in Nicaragua and goes, the bus driver can't find your strippers, where are your strippers? And I was like, hold on, Mum. And I just had to have like a surreal moment that my mum's calling me, who's straight as narrow, as a legend of a lady, asking me where my strippers were. So how did COVID affect the Puk Tours? It fully shut it down. Like, tourism wasn't a thing anymore, and that was it. It was this was sort of a massive business hurdle. One of my first was I had to refund 53 grand, I think, on Puk Tours for people that had paid bookings for that year. And I had to fucking find the money and refund everyone for that. So that was the biggest hurdle for COVID, for Puk Tours. And then after that, there was obviously nothing going forward for that branch of Puk Life, the Puk Tours side of things, and that's just simmered. I have my tours set in Central and South America, so we're just ready for the world to get back on, and we're good to go. Puk Tours Puk Tours plans for the future. It was a profitable business, and it's just now with so much going on, I want it to keep going, and I want it to take people around to all corners of the world. I just sort of need to build a bigger team. So 2023, I'm setting some time aside for the tours. I'll be going on them, the Central America, the South America tour, but I wanted to take a few like apprentices with me to set up, show them the route, show them all my connections, and so they can run the official Puk Tours for Central America and Puk Tours for South America. And then now we're in Asia, we can set up the one for Asia. Puk Tours is going to grow and get bigger and bigger. I'm just trying to build a better team in place, and I can't be on all the tours where originally quite a lot of the people were coming on the tours to party with me, sniff a line with me, and I actually see these beautiful spots, but I actually want it to turn into more the tours that wild and amazing and beautiful that people are wanting to do the tour even with me not on it. So the plan for the future is build a few little apprentices and teach them the routes, and then we can set up some more around the world too. When did I come up with the idea for Puk's Palaces? It was, well, I launched Puk Tours side of the Puk Life brand, and as I was doing these tours, I had this initial goal to build a hostel one day, and I thought it was going to be about 5 years down the track, and then fast track 11 months into the first year of Puk Tours, I landed for an opportunity, Puk's Palace, Nicaragua. The opportunity presented itself. Everyone goes, why did you choose Nicaragua? I didn't actually choose Nicaragua. I originally wanted to have one in Panama, a place called Bocas del Toro. But there was the civil war that happened in Nicaragua, and the opportunity presented itself. This place my place, Puk's Palace, Nicaragua, used to be called a place called Casa de Olas, owned by these Aussies. And I think I got originally thrown out of this place, and then now it's mine. How good's that? Good story. So I had this initial goal to build a hostel, and I ended up succeeding on that in 11 months. And I've spoke about this before, just where my head and my dream vision board took me was I wanted to have one in each continent. I wanted to have one in Central America, one in South America, one in Asia, one in Europe. And I haven't really been about manifesting until the last couple of years, or known that I set goals for myself. I actually went on a podcast years ago, Joey Damon. It was called The Shit Show or something like that, Shit Talk or something like that. And I didn't know till I watched that podcast back of myself. And in there, I tell them about my life quest, that I wanted to do the hostels. And then since then, manifestations has been so real to me, and that is still my goal in this world, was to build these now Puk's Palaces around the world, tick one off in each continent. Now I've got Central America done. Now I'm halfway through building the one here in Thailand and Asia. And I've always been hustling. I've always had my one thing, and I'm always chasing so many other ideas, and only some come to fruition. I was looking to get one in Europe, and then this Asia presented itself, and now we're here halfway through development of Puk's Palace, Thailand. So has the pandemic fucked my initial goal, or just Puk's Palace Nicaragua in itself? Yes, tourism's been dead. Now, it took me opening Puk's Palace Nicaragua, it took about 7 months of negotiating in the laws to get my corporation and all the legal side of things to open a resort, a hostel in Nicaragua. It took about 7 months, even just to get my tax code. I opened for 8 months, and then I had 70 beds. I was selling out this place. It was a dream come true. I was still running off and doing my Puk Tours, and my team was holding the fort. At 8 months, and then COVID hit, the pandemic hit. All the countries did the Mayday call for people to go back, get into their own countries. If they want to go, they have to go now. And since then, I've literally been closed. Puk's Palace Nicaragua has been closed for about 20 months. There was no income. That's just been out of pocket. I'm grateful through my social media antics, through the puklifeshow.com and my OnlyFans. I was able to support my staff the whole way through. They've worked full time, they've had a roof over their head, and they've been supported. So I was grateful for all the legends that follow me on my social platforms. I was able to still fund the palace, or else a normal man
when this COVID pandemic first hit, probably would have walked away. But I put my heart and soul into this place. I renovated it, brought it back to life. It was the first step in my my vision board, my manifestations for the Puk Palaces around the world. And it had been selling out. I wasn't walking away from that. So originally, when the pandemic hit, I just started renovating it, doing it all up, just for my own enjoyment. Then I went back to New Zealand for about 7 months, and I got back there in February this year, and just put all my money back into it instead of probably everyone would have thrown the towel in. I renovated it and made it a fucking 5-star, 6-star, 10-star resort. And just for me and the boys to enjoy. I wasn't ready for straggler backpackers to be walking around my spot. The world was a bit slow, and my money was coming in pretty strong from my social media exploits. I just enjoyed it for myself. And then as I was landing all the negotiations for Puk Palace Thailand, I started to slowly try open it as an Airbnb. And the elections just went on in Nicaragua, and my plan was to turn the hostel world switch back on and booking.com switch back on in early Jan and get that flowing again. So yeah, the pandemic fucked me, but I've ended up in that sense focusing on what actually made my brand in the first place. My last year's quote was, I've gone back to my roots, which is me rooting, and I've actually ended up making my most money in my life through social media in these tough times. The pandemic, I have capitalize on it. Presented the opportunity for Puk Palace Thailand. When I originally was walking through it in 2020, someone was trying to sell me his business and sell me the property, and now I fast forward how long this COVID's been going. This year that guy had gone, and just the property was there, and the opportunity presented itself, and I swooped in and took it, and here we are halfway through developments. My goal and my quest is to have one in each continent, and I want to just travel around a few months at each and rotate, and that be my life. The next one I want is one in the snow. I want to be able to ski into my resort, snowboard in to the door, put the snowboard on the rack. That's one of my main goals. To be a snow one. I don't know if that's the next one on the block, but in time, I definitely want a snow one. But I chase opportunities more than location or experience. So I sort of always my scouting out and finding it, because I'm not fucking got $1 million. I don't have I don't have that much money in the bank. I try swoop in on opportunities that are achievable and turning that into a magical place and making it my own and making it Puk Life. Talk about visions and whatnot. Something's come over me, and for my next year plan, and before I go to my third target, my third Puk Palace, this quest has come to light, and I just can't stop thinking about it. I have a friend, Michael Hobbs. His dad was Jack Hobbs, and he has this foundation that he built a school in Kenya, and I was speaking to him, and because I've made these 2 palaces for myself and for people to come party it around the world, but I want to do something more in a charitable sense that I don't know how it started coming into my manifestations, but I want to head and do something similar to Hobbsy did, and I want maybe with his help and go over to Africa and to one of the slums, and I want to build an orphanage. It might sound funny to you, but this is where my head's been at for 6 months. I want to build a Puk Palace there, but it's like an orphanage for kids. Get some land in one of the slums and build a nice orphanage that can, host a ton of kids in there and look after them. That's on the burner next for next year before I chase down the third Puk Palace resort. Puk Life's the brand, and I've attempted this many avenues through Puk Life, and I tried that many and hoping one will come off, and then that one could be my most successful one yet. So no one sees all the failures I go through trying to launch a new idea or a new part of the business. But I don't like having all my eggs in one basket, especially buying having these resorts. If one part of the world is suffering, maybe my other resort can fund both of them in the time that one is struggling on that side of the world. So yeah, I I like to attempt as much as I can. My ideas are always flowing, and if one out of those 10 things is successful, then I'm happy days. I'm happy for 9 to fall between the cracks. Which is my most successful? To the honest truth, I guess what started my brand of Puk Life was my naughty antics, my like crazy, just documenting the life that no one else really documents. That was the foundation of what started me, and then through this pandemic, I actually have gone back to that because Puk Tours had stopped, Puk's Palace Nicaragua had stopped. There was a time you throw the towel in and go back to a normal job, but no, I went back to what I was good at, and that was sort of being a naughty lad. And it's, I don't know if it's not bad to say, I'm pretty proud of it. My social media paid platforms, I've made the most money in my life. So like Pansy Bodger Baggins and OnlyFans, I've never seen more money come in from any other of my branches that I've attempted. That would be my most successful. The most thing I'm proud at is I'm like proud at probably what I'm doing now. Like I'm building a palace in a pandemic, in a monsoon, halfway through development, biting off way more than I can chew, but I'm fucking still got the positive mindset. I'm still holding down Nicaragua over there. That's still just out of pocket. And I'm just hoping for just positive that the world's going to come right. And I'm going to be sitting here with 2 of the biggest party resorts in the world. Any that was not so successful, to be honest, I try that much shit and that much shit fails that I couldn't even really put a nail on the head, if that's the saying, of like one that's distinctive. I had the, like I was doing the radio, schmadio, that fell through, which was last year, but that was more me just helping out friends, and I could love every branch of social media. If you get me chatting on anything, I fucking love it. That went good. Everyone was tuning into my app that I brought everyone over, but then I think the people on that app had a disagreement and that fell through the cracks. But anything where I can talk shit on, I love. But outside that, I haven't had any distinctive absolute fails. Just I try that much shit that, I'm just sort of comfortable with them just falling away, you know. Any future business ideas? So I'm against, obviously, normality, 9 to 5. These people grow up and they're engaged by 26. They've got a 50-year mortgage. I was never about that life. I was always about I was always about just living my best life and finding a way to capitalize on that and make money from that. So in the sense of future ideas, my normality is building these resorts around the world for you guys to come party at. And if I just follow that track, which is a pretty wild and a pretty amazing life, for me, that's normality. And for me, I find that's me not been succeeding. I want more. That's my norm. I want more. So as long this journey, as I'm building these around the world, I want to find my trip up and find my $1 billion idea, you know? Like I'm always aiming for the stars, and what I'm doing at the moment for me is just my norm till I muster up, or the idea comes to me of what's actually the game changer. So outside, the short-term goal at the moment is building these palaces, and the long-term goal is still unseen. So the Puk Life plans is right now it's getting this palace developed, not renovated, fucking finished and open and running successfully, staff in place, and I hope that all to be by January. We're opening for my Puk tour here of Puk's Palace Thailand on the 22nd of December. So my goal short term is to be all ready for that, and if you went through the palace at the moment, it wouldn't look it, but I'm positive. Going forward from that, having a team in place to run it here, have set up a team in Nicaragua to run that as a party hostel, have these two running side by side, turning them into a couple of the biggest party destinations in the world. Going in March, I'm going back home to have an operation, and I want my next venture to be the Africa one. I want to build a Puk Foundation or a charity company that could raise funds or capital so I could that would be interested in supporting me to go over for this Africa mission to build an orphanage. After that, I want, with all the Palace has been running smoothly, I want to be targeting my third spot. So by the end of 2022, we're sitting here in the spot. My third one is either already bought or it's starting to be built or renovated. Am I happy with the level of success so far? I could say no. I mean, in the sense of through all this, fighting all the hurdles and obstacles in life with social media, I've been cut down. I've built up, no one really knows it, but with my social medias, it's like a shares in a company. Imagine you built your company up and suddenly you lose your account or you lose your company, you lose all the shares in the company, you lose all your exposure. I've been fighting that for about 5 years, of losing an account with 250,000 people watching me, or losing Instagram. From the outside, it looks like nothing, but man, it's painful when you now got a business mindset and you're trying to capitalize on it, losing all this exposure where that could be being pushed towards Puk's Palace around the world, or Puk Tours, or my merch having a lot more exposure. I could have been a lot more successful. People will know me around the world, but they still don't be following me because they've lost the account years ago. So the level of success, I think it could be way better, but I mean, I'm fighting the fight. I'm still here, still surviving with that many people trying to cut me down. Do I see a finish line? Nah, I never see a finish line, not at all. I'm always gonna now find more ways to level up and take this company even higher. As I'm saying, I'm always looking for that $1 billion idea, or how I can make this company actually make a dent and make a mark in the world. I don't see a finish line at all, to be honest. Like, if I tick off 5 resorts around the world, I know I'm going to have my plans for what's next after that. I'm always chasing, never settling. When I'm with a wife, that's her, that's me. I'm not going on, I'm not polyamorous. I don't want many other, I could have a family at each palace around the world, in each country, which would be quite exciting. But no, I'm definitely just want a wife and kids. But I want my kids to live different life to anyone else. I want them to speak, 3 languages by the time they're 5, because their dad's got a palace in Central America, a palace in South America, a palace in Asia. So they're going to live a pretty good life. I guess lucky for guys and men at times, not really an issue for us. I mean, in 10 years, I could still have a 22-year-old girlfriend, have my babies. But who knows? When you trip up, when I fall in love, I fall deep. I guess I maybe got hurt a few years ago, and then that turned me into business, and I haven't looked back. If I had a partner the last couple of years, I wouldn't be where I am now. Unless she had a fucking few million followers on Instagram and we did OnlyFans together, maybe we'd be in the same place. But I'm sort of setting up these foundations for life for my family later. If the love of my life walks in, I'll probably know that, but it'll be like our lifestyles will have to match and sync, and we'll have to be about what each other want. So I found like everyone traveling, maybe living in London, living overseas, they always had the mindset, oh yeah, I'm ready to call it quits and go back to New Zealand. There's no calling it quits for me. My family live in New Zealand. My family would rather travel around the world and meet me than me come back to New Zealand. Everyone knows I get pretty flustered there, and yeah, it's not for me. I mean, it'd be nice to go back and visit my friends and their kids growing up, whatnot. The only thing that would keep me in New Zealand will be if I set up a Puk's Palace there, which could happen in Bay of Islands. But yeah, I don't have an end goal in my life, in the sense where you call it quits and go back and live in New Zealand. I'm doing me. The family and the exploits, like OnlyFans and the Puk Life show, oh, for sure. I mean, when I'm wanting to have a family, I'm going to be still have my OnlyFans account popping, or the Puk Life show. I think at the moment, this is setting up my future for my family later in life. This is like doing the foundations of everything, really. And at the moment, it's great having the support of OnlyFans and the Puk Life show. But by the time I'm ready to have kids, I'm going to have my 5 palaces and my other business interests that will be funding our lifestyle, which we won't need to be getting a leg over and putting gummy bears up a girl's ass to make some money. Man, I learned all my life lessons traveling the world. I mean, just leave your town you're brought up in, leave your original friend group, go see the world. You know, there's more to life than the Friday and the same bar on a Friday and Saturday night. If you can't travel the world, just travel your own country. Step outside your comfort zone. You know, where I'm from, you know, before me traveling, it's all quite pretentious. You're going around the world, meeting all different walks of life. You'll truly learn a lot. I think just finishing off is, man, you could walk out across the road and get hit by a bus. Life's too short. Go out and fucking live it. Don't let people hold you back in life. Don't get restricted. Don't be bound to a relationship where you can't grow. Just enjoy life, embrace it, and take it by the balls. Up the Puk.